Hello, everyone, and welcome to another impromptu edition of Crypto Cove. It's good to be back here with you all so soon after last time, but sometimes that's how it goes. All right, so we're going to jump right into tonight's two main topics. The first one being regarding RPC URLs, and the second one being why you really shouldn't worry about the token values of our PF tokens going down right now. So to jump right in, now a little over 24 hours ago, we had an issue with several RPC URLs going down to the point where some people saw a $0 balance in their MetaMask wallets. Either that, or it was just showing the balance that they had in their BNB. Now, the reason for that is an RPC shutdown that unfortunately affected several different RPC endpoints. And I actually have a good description of that in my RPC remedy guide. So I'm not going to go into what that is for the sake of time, but that guide is available if you want to read it and take a look and get ideas to what we're talking about here. But with that in mind, since then, the issue appears to have been fixed and all of the RPCs appear to be in working order now. We can see here from Chainlist, that being the main resource that I suggest in my guide, that a majority of the RPCs I recommend appear to be in working order now. And one thing you might notice is that some of these have higher latency than some others. That can be a bad thing because the block time for the Binance Smart Chain is 3/4 of a second. So if you see a latency time, like for example, here we see 3.3 seconds, that can be a bad thing because that can start to add up. The seconds can absolutely start to add up the more you work with the Binance Smart Chain and the more you do anything with your wallet. So that can be an issue. Okay, but that being the case, everything is pretty much fixed. And the main issue that we were having roughly 24 hours ago is that the main RPC URL endpoint I recommend in my guide, that being the Binance Llama RPC, was down completely. So folks who are following the automatic portion of my guide, or those that followed it in the past, found that they were having the most problems because this was the problem right here. Let's see if I can get my pen. Yeah, and I'm still not entirely sure why it went down. There were several on this list that went down and then came back up later, but this one for some reason took the longest to come back up. But let's double check to make sure that it's up now, just to be certain. And yep, the RPC proxy is running fine, so that's good. All right, so that was what was causing that issue for anyone curious. And if anyone is still having that issue, reach out to either me or a member of the executive team. But in the meantime, for the next time we face an issue like this, I now have an easier solution than following the manual portion of my guide. If we go over to my knowledge base /blog/dumping grounds, you can see that I now have several new buttons here on the sidebar. Now, these are buttons that allow you to easily switch between different RPC URLs that I found are some of the more resilient and some of the ones that have the least latency. So we're going to go ahead and try them out as an example, even though my wallet is running fine. And right now you can see that my RPC URL is, where did it go? That my RPC URL is set to the Binance.llama RPC. So we're going to go back to the page and we're going to click on switch to public node. Now, if you've never done this before on my blog, first you'll have to, actually, looks like it's been set to not require that. Now, what you'll see is a prompt to update your Binance Smart Chain information. What this will do is it will update the network URL, also known as an RPC URL, that your iteration of MetaMask is using to connect with the Binance Smart Chain. And you'll probably see some notices here that according to our records, the network name may not match the chain ID. We recommend that you verify the details. Those are both fine. Those are both MetaMask pretty much trying to err on the side of caution of trying to protect the user. But in this case, I wrote this code myself. Granted, I had the help of ChatGPT, but I've tested this code and I know it works properly. So we can go ahead and click approve. All right, and you're not going to see anything to confirm that worked, but what you can do is you can open MetaMask back up. Then you can click on the Binance Smart Chain button. And you can see that our RPC URL has changed to the public node RPC. And this solution works pretty similarly in mobile. It's just that I'm using the desktop laptop extension just because that's what I'm most comfortable with. And also, if it comes out that public node is down or isn't being responsive to you for whatever reason, you can switch to either the error two I have here. Like, for example, we're going to click on switch to block razor. And just like before, MetaMask will pop up with a suggestion to update our Binance Smart Chain. And this is going to do the exact same thing, basically as the last one did, only it's going to connect us to the block razor RPC URL rather than the public nodes RPC URL. And again, you'll see these alerts here. These are fine. I'll go ahead and click the approve button. And then we'll open up MetaMask and double check that we have in fact changed over to block razor. We have indeed. All right, so now I'm going to switch over to BXLR or BLXR, excuse me, just to verify that that one's working too, and just to round us out. Yep, everything looks good here, so I'll click approve. And then we'll go over to the Binance Smart Chain information. And yep, we're connected to that endpoint now. Okay, so folks, if you're still seeing a $0 balance here, or you're just seeing balance from your BNB here, then go ahead and try this method first. I'll leave the link to this dumping ground in the video description. And if it doesn't work after that, feel free to reach out to the executive team. All right, so that was the first topic I wanted to talk about here today, tonight, etc. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the next topic? No?
No,
All righty.
good, thank you.
All righty, I guess I'm doing a good job explaining again. All right, let me make sure I have the rest of this set up here. All right, and I'll go ahead and share my screen again. All right, and here we are at the PFI charts. Now, as you can see, we've had several sellers recently, and who is All right, everyone, please stay muted unless you're talking to me, please, or might really want to say something. All right, so back on track. We're over at the PFI chart, and we can see that we've had quite a few sellers recently. Now, folks, I can understand why this might be concerning to see. It looks like the value of our coins are going down. And in fact, for the old coins, yes, they are. But that's really not something we should be too concerned about. And we honestly shouldn't be too concerned about these sellers that are selling off what they can before the 15th deadline, because those are actually helping us by shaking out the people that we can't trust. Now, I can understand why people are upset about this, because when you see the value here in your wallet going down, then that might make you a bit nervous. That might make you a bit concerned. And for a couple of you, that might make you a bit angry because you've worked hard to get to this balance. So to see that going down is definitely concerning. Wouldn't you say, folks?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but
We do.
the thing is that we don't really care too much about the prices of our current tokens, because part of what we're going to be doing to alleviate that issue is we're going to be switching over to new tokens. And those tokens are going to start out at our price targets. And Angelito, could you please keep yourself muted? Alrighty. I'll go ahead and start the share again. So as I was saying, we're going to be switching over to new tokens, and the old tokens that we have are going to be locked up for a year before we get the new tokens. And let's go over to this quick document I prepared. Now, our price target for, say, PFI is 500,000. Our price target for PFB is 1 million. For PFS, it's 2 million. And for PFG, it's 4 million. Now, our new tokens are going to launch at our price targets. So PFJ will launch at 500,000. PFC will launch at 1 million. PFT will launch at 2 million. And PFH will launch at 4 million a coin. Now, these are just placeholder names that I'm using because they're the next letter from the last letter here. So PFI becomes PFJ because J is the next letter of the alphabet, for instance. These are not going to be the actual names of the tokens, folks. I do not know the names of the new tokens, and even if I did know, I imagine Ace would make me swear a blood oath or something to that effect, not to tell anyone. Now, he can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but in either case, I honestly do not know. But anyway, now it does not matter what the value of PFI is when we do the lockup of the tokens on the 15th. The amount of PFI or even one full PFI token itself could be $10, and that still would not matter on the 15th, because what matters is the amount of token you have rather than the token value. So going back to our PFI explanation again, example rather, 0.1 PFI is going to be equal to 0.1 PFJ after a year, because that's going to be what you get out of the smart contracts when it starts sending token out to people after a year. Same thing for the other tokens. 0.1 PFB is going to be equal to 0.1 PFC. Now, it does not matter what PFB is worth on the 15th, and it does not matter what PFB is going to be worth a year from now. Although I certainly hope it goes up in value in the meantime. Because if you put in 0.1 PFB into the smart contract that's going to be locking up the tokens, you'll receive 0.1 PFC a year later. And keep in mind, all these tokens will be starting at our price targets. So already we're going to be much stronger than we ever have been right out of the gates. And it's only going to get better from there because no one will have these tokens by default for a year. So if anyone wants to get their hands on some PFJ, PFC, PFT, or PFH, when any of them launch, what they'll have to do is they'll have to buy it. And if they're a ne'er-do-well and they want to try and hurt us in some way, then they're going to have to put down a lot of capital to even attempt to. Even for the cheapest token, that being the PFJ, at $500,000 for one PFJ, even for a really small amount, you'd have to put down a lot of money, a lot of USDT, in order to get even just a little bit of PFJ. And if you're wanting to try and hurt the community in some way, that's going to work against you because number one, that means obviously that means you have to put a lot of money down just with the chance of doing so. So that's automatically going to exclude quite a few people. But even if someone decides to just go ahead with that, what they're going to find when they go to sell their TFJ in order to try and attack the community is they'll find that the price action that they get for that token is much lower. Like, for example, say if they manage to purchase $5,000 worth of PFJ. Now, the price impacts because there won't be much trading, so not much in the liquidity pool, means that the amount of USDT they get back from that trade will be cut dramatically. In fact, I've seen this happened before where some liquidity pools that don't have a lot of either token in them, to the point where their $5,000 might turn into 2,500, might turn into as low as 1,000 or even lower. So not only will it be really hard to hurt the community by trying to buy and sell these tokens, but anyone who tries is going to be losing a lot of money doing so. Okay, so bottom line, don't be too concerned about sellers. And in fact, the sellers are actually giving us a good opportunity by selling off their tokens. Because if we look here at the charts, yes, that big red candle does look ugly, but if you look at the bigger picture, that's also giving us an opportunity. If you're wanting to buy more of any of the tokens in the PF collection, you can treat this as a good buying opportunity because $1,371 for PFI, that's on sale, wouldn't you say? Because not too long ago it was up above 2,000, and not too long ago before that, actually quite a bit ago, it was up above 3,000, and so on. But we could continue with this, but you get the idea. And all the tokens are seeing the same thing happen, basically. So let's go over to PFB. And you can see we're seeing something similar happen here. Right now, one PFB is worth 3,500, but not too long ago, it was up above 13, 14,000. So that's definitely on sale. That's a pretty big chunk. In fact, I can't think of the exact percentage right off the top of my head, but that's definitely something like, say, 50, 75% off. So that seems like a pretty good buying opportunity. Wouldn't you say, folks?
You're
This is where
absolutely
you
Hamza.
this is where you say yes.
Yep.
All right, so let me break it down a bit more for you folks. That think about your favorite restaurant to go to, and think about your favorite dish at that restaurant, your favorite food to order. Now, what if your server that day, or whoever you're placing your order with, comes to you and tells you that, hey, that favorite dish of yours is 50% off, 75% off today. Now, that would probably make you want to order it even more now, wouldn't it? And there's a good chance that you might even want to order twice as much as you usually do because it's so cheap, right? I mean, if you're trying to be a whale, you might as well eat like a whale, right? Okay, then. Anyway, I think I'm making my point there pretty clear. So we'll just go on, and that was just about all I wanted to talk about and showcase to you all here tonight. Is there anyone who has any questions about any of that, any of what we went over?
Obviously not,
No?
Hunter.
I done it again, apparently. I guess Ace is rubbing off on me. I'm explaining things well enough to no one leads with any questions whatsoever.
And Hunter, I'd rather be a lean, healthy whale.
To each their own, my friend. To each their own. That's all I can say about that. Alrighty, and does anyone have any questions about anything crypto related, even if we didn't talk about it tonight? Any comments, concerns, or anything of that nature?
Thank you, Sir Hunter. Your presentation is so clear.
You're very welcome. All right, anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close out. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording.